Two words, Jake Oettinger. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day and making us a part of your day, free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Oh my goodness, Jake Oettinger is phenomenal. In the Stars' victory over the St. Louis Blues on opening night by a final score of 2-1 in a shootout. Of course, game number one had to go into overtime. Face your fears right away, Stars fans. And the Stars go past 60 minutes, but Jason Robertson and Matt Duchene score in the skills competition. But Jake Oettinger is the storyline, and we're going to dive into all of that here in this one. But today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. Man, about as an entertaining opening night as you can get. It was interesting, a bit bizarre at times, but the Stars come out of game one with a victory, which is the most important part of it all. And Otter, I guess, is just going to Otter this year. He talked about staying off the ice a bit more in the offseason to be fresh and mentally prepared for the long grind of a season. And who am I to be concerned about that? Because he looked like the best goaltender in the National Hockey League, maybe besides Philip Gustafson, who pitched a shutout for Minnesota. But if he needs to play golf, you can be at Pebble Beach every other day, Otter. That's okay with me, man, if you give us performances like that night in and night out. Ton of stuff to get into. Wyatt Johnston looked really good. He had a chance to end it a few times in overtime. It was sloppy all the way around, though. It was not pretty by any means, but good teams find a way to win, and the Dallas Stars found a way to win last night. Oh, just crazy. Jordan Binnington was incredible, too. I mean, Oettinger out-dueled him, because if it wasn't for both of these netminders, this game could have been 6-5. I mean, there was chance after chance. And Binnington had an incredible few stops on Pavelski to rob him of some goals. And of course, Oettinger was stoning Blues players all night long as well. So they just were matching each other save for save, because the teams in front of them were not all that clean and not all that buttoned up in this one. Too many odd man rushes. The Stars had a lot of giveaways, especially at neutral ice. They were tracking back to their net way too much. Even on the power play a few times, it was, oh my Lord, they get caught up the ice. And then here comes an odd man rush down on Oettinger. There was tons of stuff I wrote down. Dallas just did not look connected in the first really period and a half. Not everything was flowing, and I guess that's to be expected. The lines that they trotted out there did not get to play with each other all that much in the preseason. Well, mainly due to the fact that the Stars were a bit banged up, right? And of course, with Rope out, the line is just completely different. Seguin did a great job. I thought he was one of the bright spots too for the forward group. But Rope's so dynamic. It makes that hence Pavelski and Robertson line just so much different with his speed, of course. So you don't expect to see that line just tearing it up like you would be accustomed to with Rope, but it changes it a bit. And then the other lines had to be jumbled due to that fact. And it just, nobody was really connected. They struggled to go tape to tape through neutral ice and, fly in off the rush like they were so good at last year, blowing into the attacking zone and getting chances that way. The best line was Benn, Johnston, and Delandre/Jadonov, who got reunited with the line late in the second period because DeBoer was just trying to find something. And that was a bit of familiarity, at least. And that line was good. But Benn was so good tonight. He just looked prime Jamie Benn like. He was physical. He was mucking it up. He was setting the tone, forcing the issue, had a great goal too, peeling it off the end wall, and then beating Binnington glove side next to the crease. So a great game by the captain. It wasn't pretty on the back end right off the hop. The Stars looked slow. Hakanpää especially got beat a few times. Lindell did not have a great start. They both got better as the game wore on. Lundqvist, I thought, did a lot of favors for himself. Him and Harley looked fine, and those are two guys that Pete DeBoer's putting a lot more on their shoulders. They need to be good if the Stars team wants to be good. And I thought they were both fine. Lundqvist flashed a lot. He ended up hitting the pipe. What a move on Torrey Krug in the third period to dangle past him. And then, of course, rung the iron against Jordan Binnington as he tried to win it in regulation. But I thought Harley was fine. Miro's going to Miro. But, of course, it was all about the Otter tonight. And I posted a short before puck drop, and I mentioned that let's see what Jake Oettinger looks like in between the pipes because he's going to make a case for a Vezina trophy. Maybe he can do it right away in game number 1, and he did. He made a statement, and it was a big one. And a big shout out to the Blues. I thought it was going to be a tightly contested game. I think the Blues are just a hard team to play against. They have a ton of experience and veteran leadership on the back end, and they got some young guys that can score. And I mean, the Stars, frankly, are a bit lucky too to even get to OT because Robert Thomas had almost a wide open net with like 2 seconds to go in the third period where the Blues were trying to beat the buzzer and Thomas fired it over the net. If that one goes in, you don't even get a point in this one, let alone 2. But they were able to squeak out of there with a 2-1 victory. It was a fun game. OT especially, the Stars controlled it for 85% of the overtime period. Of course, they got the late power play, the 4-on-3, unable to capitalize, but Wyatt Johnston looked just phenomenal in the overtime 3-on-3. He was flying in, almost got a wraparound to go home. He was creating a ton of chances, and so much for him being banged up in the preseason because he didn't miss a beat along with Benn. Also, that fourth line, big shout out to them. Radek Faksa, Sam Steele, and Craig Smith. I thought were very steady. Probably the most consistent line of the night. You're not looking for them to chip in offensively all that much, but you want them to play in the attacking zone and keep the Blues away from your net. And I thought they did that for the majority of the game. But the Stars just gave up too many chances in tight against Oettinger. The heat map where you see where St. Louis had a couple of their chances. There is just tons and tons of red right in that little 10-foot radius around the net. But thankfully, Oettinger was sharp and he was ready for the moment. Other than that, not much to, I guess, complain about and to overly, I guess, overreact against. I thought it looked like an opening night for both sides. Not everybody was on the same page, and it looked like they were kind of knocking some rust off. And I guess that's to be expected. I guess sometimes we're just have been accustomed to watching this team just firing on all cylinders. They're not going to have any issues, but hey, it's day one of a long journey. Now they get 4 days off to regroup, and they're going to have to be much better against Vegas on Tuesday as we get a rematch of the Western Conference Finals. So they'll be able to get on the road, which I think will be good for them. They're going to be doing some team bonding. and maybe they can find some of that chemistry if Rope is still going to be out, and they're going to have to kind of jumble these lines together. But all in all, I mean, about as entertaining as an opening night game you can get. And more importantly, the Stars win past 60 minutes. They did it. I mean, face your fears right away, Stars fans. We're going to OT in game number 1. And they got the job done. But let's talk about this decor, because some of the concerns we talked about in the preseason came to fruition last night. And Oettinger cleaned them up. But let's dive into a bit about this decor, and they just got to be better. All right. And we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Jace Medical. And everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you the peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Alrighty, let's dig into some of these defensive concerns and defensive zone concerns for these Stars, because I think everybody in the first few periods were getting flashbacks to when we saw the Stars' demise last spring. But they were able to hold on. Let's just kind of go individually, I guess, to break this one down. Miro was Miro, looked really good, had a few chances to score, let a few bombs go at the top of the zone, but just missed a few times. But Miro looked like Miro for his sake. And the one I thought Ryan Suter actually played a really great game, probably one of the more even keeled, consistent guys in the lineup. Did not give up a ton of chances. Had a bad turnover in the first period that I remember, but of course did not hurt them. A lot of turnovers they had did not hurt them. Even on the power play, 2-on-1s coming the other way. It's like, what is going on, guys? Let's figure this out. They got cut up the ice a couple times. I thought everybody may have been a bit jittery off the hop. Like Lindell and Hakanpää both got beat wide a few times, and guys were dipping shoulders and beating them to the net against Oettinger. And it's a credit to the Blues, too. I mean, they forced the issue. They're a hard team. They want to play on the wall, and they want to try to grind it out. And they drew a couple penalties. Fortunately, the PK was good. Miro, of course, on the PK was great. Hakanpää and Lindell get a lot of action on there as well. And Lindell was good on the PK. But I did not think he had a great start to the game. He got better as the game wore on, which I think everybody did too. Niels Lundqvist looked really good. I love his mobility and his ability to create scoring chances for himself. He's just so shifty. He's got kind of that small frame, but he looked stronger and made a couple of nice things happen. Hakanpää, not all that great, but I thought he was good down the stretch. The Stars made a couple of huge defensive plays, 3 or 4 moments in a row, if you remember, in that third period, where Kyrou was screaming down the right wing side. Lindell cut him off nicely. Hakanpää ended up doing to, I think, Buchnevich later in the game too. So they made a couple of big plays when they needed it. And that's all you can ask for at some points, right? It was a 1-1 hockey game, and the Blues started to find some momentum, and they were coming downhill. And fortunately, guys like Hakanpää, Lindell, and I think even Harley made a great play to cut off a few angles and take the puck away and get possession back for the Stars. But in general, I mean, right off the hop, there is just tons of bodies and rubber heading towards Oettinger. And of course, the goal that St. Louis scored, there was just too many bodies in front. Honkenpah and Lindell were the pairing on the goal, and they probably ended up screening Oettinger as Tucker was able to get one pass. I was really interested in the time on ice numbers, especially for the D-Corps. Miro led the way, 1843. S. Lindell had the second most time on ice, 1704, but it was pretty consistent with Lundqvist, Harley, and Suter, all just above 16 minutes on the night. And Hakanpää played the least at 13-15. And you could tell DeBoer was trying to get Miro out there with Harley a few times late to try to create some offensive chances in the contest as well. But I thought Harley and Niels flashed at some points. Harley had a great rush where I think he passed it off to Pavelski, screaming down the slot, went in front and tried to get a tip. I believe it was Pavelski, our Marchment, which is a great sign. I want to see them be aggressive and not be afraid to jump up in a play. Pete DeBoer is expecting big things out of those guys, right? He's putting more weight on their shoulder. And if the Stars want to be good, Harley and Lundqvist just have to be good. It's just kind of end of story. I'm not going to sit here and harp and overreact to the game yesterday, right? It's one game, and everybody was knocking a bit of rust off. Sloppy hockey's entertaining too, so I'm certainly not going to be upset. I would have liked Oettinger to not have to be as spectacular, but at the same time, it's fun to watch him have to be spectacular. So all in all, they got better as the game wore on. That's for sure. But they definitely need to cut down on just getting caught up the ice. They had to track back way too much, and it's going to come to bite them. I mean, it did in the spring last year. I don't want to be harping on this right away too much, but the details matter at the end of the day. And this is the stuff that can come back to haunt you when it really matters. But, it's new pairings. Not everybody played together in the preseason, right? Different guys are playing at different moments depending on their schedule. So I'm sure everybody's getting used to playing with each other. But all in all, PK was really good. I thought Niels Lundqvist looked good as a quarterback on the power play number 2. Miro was dancing a few times trying to facilitate and get some guys open, but all the special teams were over, so good job from the PKs. And the Stars had to kill some big ones because the Blues had a chance to take the lead, and who knows if they take a lead with the Stars kind of, struggling up front to find some offense in this one. If the Blues were able to get a lead, who knows what happens, especially with the way Binnington was playing. I mean, Binnington is definitely a 3-star in this one. He's probably the third because without him, the Blues are going to be nowhere in this. And without Otter, who knows what the score could have been for Dallas as well. Okay, we're going to wrap this one up talking a bit about the Stars being 1-0 past 60 minutes. I'll just kind of give my final thoughts as well, and we'll move on. We'll put it in the rearview mirror. 1-0, which is what you wanted, and you move on to Vegas on Tuesday, so you have a chance to regroup. So let's talk a bit about this team past 60 minutes and the horrors from a season ago, but maybe the monkey was lifted last night, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Sleeper. The NHL season is finally here, Stars fans, as you well know. And I absolutely love the NHL. I know you do, and that's why I have to tell you about the Sleeper app. The Sleeper app is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, and it's the go-to for daily sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. The NHL has never been in a better place. McDavid, Ovechkin, Connor Bedard, Makar, Jason Robertson, Miro Heiskanen, and you don't have to just worry about filling in the roster throughout the whole year. You can just pick more or less on stats like goals, assists, and saves. How many saves is Oettinger going to get? Because he's going to have a lot. Let me tell you what. And you heard me, 100-time payouts on sleepers. So start paying attention and get your picks right, and you could win big. Use promo code Locked On NHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleepers terms of use for details. Final segment here on Locked On Stars. Thank you guys so much for your support. I loved your predictions yesterday for the contest, and many of them came to fruition. Talking about the shooting star, I know many of you picked Jake Oettinger, and shame on me for not picking him. Hey, I had Marchment, and he technically scored. Okay, I was distraught. I was like, hey, look at me. I picked right. My guy is going to get the shooting star of the game. I know my stuff, right? Mason Marchment, baby, big power play goal. And of course, they were offside. I was very irritated by that. I had to take, I'm not right all that much, so I wanted to take my win where I could get it. But many of you were correct in picking Jake Oettinger, and I think most nights you could pick him. And you're going to be correct. And some of you had Benn, and he probably was the second best player tonight for Dallas, of course, scoring the lone goal. But wow, Jason Robertson in a shootout. I mean, it's automatic. You might as well just skip him and just make it 1-0. Like put the check mark for Dallas in round one and just move on to, I guess, maybe Duchene now. It's Duchene with a nice move to pull to his forehand and then beat Binnington off the pipe and in. Tyler Seguin had a chance to win it. He was stoned, but it had to be Oettinger. It was going to end on a shot against Oettinger. And of course, he made the stop. And the Stars were brutal in OT last year, 8 for 14, one of the worst in the National Hockey League. But they're 1-0 this time, and they played really good in 3-on-3 too. They had possession for the majority of the period, and of course, puck possession is so key. And DeBoer has always talked about wanting to be a bit more patient, not be so gung-ho on taking the first chance you get, so to speak. And I think the Stars definitely took that to heart, and they practiced it a ton throughout training camp and the preseason. So it's something they, of course, are really, really making an emphasis on for this season. And like I said, a few weeks ago too, if you win a couple more of your overtime games, you win the division and you have home ice advantage throughout the playoffs. And who knows how that can affect a series. So it's important to pick up the full 2 points, and they did against St. Louis, who is a team that I think will be fighting for a wild card spot. But it's teams that you want to beat, and you got to beat these Central Division opponents. It's going to be tough, and I think the Blues played a really great game too. I thought they were honestly the better team through the first couple periods in terms of scoring chances, which I don't mean a whole lot to some people, but they had the edge. I think it was 24-15 after 40 minutes. And the Stars had some, but wasn't a whole lot of, grade A stuff, I would say, or the high quality scoring chances. The Blues had plenty of them. And of course, Oettinger had to come to the rescue a few times. I think this win was so big for Jake and Otter. I think it wore on him last year. The amount of times he had to leave the ice losing on the last shot, whether he wants to tell you that or not, because he's such a competitor, but that has to weigh on you. And of course, it's not always his fault. And OT is a completely different game. Sometimes the guy gets a break and he beats you, right? But he has to shoulder some of that at some point, thinking like, man, again, I let the team down. I couldn't make the stop that needed to happen in order to keep the game going. And he made a couple of phenomenal ones in the 3-on-3 period. And then, of course, made 2 of 3 in the shootout to lock this one up. But 1-0 past 60 minutes, a great start for the Stars. More importantly, 1-0. A fun night, though, at the American Airlines Center. It was sloppy, but sloppy hockey, as I mentioned earlier, too, is a lot of fun. Turnovers creates a lot of chances, and there was a lot of chances, but both goalies were great. So, 3 stars for this one. If I had to give one out, I mean, Ottinger's number 1 for sure. Probably Benn too, just because he looked like he was ready for the moment and had a phenomenal bounce back season last year. Of course, I think he's going to have another great one in his 10th season as a captain. It's hard to believe that he's been around that long. And then third, you have to give it to Binnington. I mean, he was great, and both creases were occupied by some great net minding last night, and Oettinger just happened to outduel him by 1 shot. So the Stars with a win 2-1 in OT, or excuse me, in a shootout. They get to regroup and go on the road, but just a mini road trip. It's Vegas and then Philadelphia, and they come right back home. So they'll be doing some team bonding in Vegas. What could go wrong, right? And they'll get prepared to take on the Golden Knights on Tuesday, who are off to a very nice start as well. The reigning Stanley Cup champs. But all in all, a fun one. I hope everybody enjoyed their first night of hockey in DFW. We got 81 more of these things. And I think the Stars team is in good hands. I do want to give a shout out to the fourth line, too. I thought they were really good. Before we kind of wrap this up, Sam Steele, Craig Smith, and Foxa, I thought they were very, very consistent. Maybe one of the more few consistent lines besides the Benn, Johnston, and Dadonov trio. I just wanted to throw that out there and show them some love, because I thought they played a heck of a game, too. And they had some shifts that the Stars really needed when they may have been backpedaling a bit. So shout out to those guys as well. Want to show them some love. Alrighty, that'll do it. We'll catch you next week. Next week, we'll break down this Vegas team, and we'll get prepared for that one on Tuesday night. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Joey Erickson. Follow me on the Twitters, the X's, Joey the Jet 19. I'm throwing out all that stuff, all my good stuff. Sometimes I got my work. It's not always good, but I like to share, and I like to have fun. So, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We will see you next week, everybody. So long, Stars fans.